So I'm gonna hit go on the recording for you. Okay. All right.
Okay, to proceed? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Um, Hi, everyone. I thought tonight, before I launched into Harp, I would just give you a brief thing here. I've sent this around. Some of you may have this already, but uh, a new thing for iPad has really come to the fore recently. It's called Staff Pad and enables you to use an Apple Pencil on an iPad
Hmm.
with handwriting recognition. And so I thought I would just share this. You can get it in the chat if you want to download the PDF. Um, but anyway, here are some YouTube things that tells you more about it. And with a certain segment of the music community, this has really created quite a stir, particularly among music arrangers in Hollywood and in New York. Um, they think this is really the cat's meow. um, I I'm kind of ambivalent about it because the reviews on it are kind of mixed. Some people seem to settle in and can work with it, and the iPad can recognize their handwriting working on it, and others seem to struggle. But in any event, I wanted to bring it to your attention because for some people, maybe among the younger folks who are really into the technology, this may be quite something because it enables you to enter things by hand and then immediately turns it into notation. And it does all kinds of neat things. Like for example, if you're writing a harp part, the thing will even put in the harp markings for you for the pedal changes when you
Hmm.
write it. It recognizes when there are changes and it automatically puts that in the score for you, just among many other things. And it has some wonderful playback features with some very high-end sampled sounds. But anyway, I just wanted to share this information, and just get out. And there are other YouTube videos, and you can get more information. This There's a book by Steve Barden dealing with kind of staff, all the things you want to know about StaffPad, and it's available on Amazon. And they did have a special on it, but actually the best buy is the Kindle edition on Amazon. So you don't have to download any more paper. Just get it in Kindle, and you'll have it. Anyway, I just leave this here for your attention, and you
Greg,
can
question.
download it.
I got a question for you. On the iPad, the MIDI resource sound output, is that all coming from within the iPad?
Yes, yeah, uh-huh.
How
It's
can they do that? I mean,
well, they've somehow shrunk the files, the sound files down so that they fit on an iPad. I can't remember. It takes up very little room actually, just a few gigabytes, and they've borrowed it. It's based on the. I'm trying to think. This is a British application, and they've used things out of the thing called Spitfire and another London Symphony Orchestra samples.
Hmm.
Is what it's based on, and they have things for jazz, percussion. It's really quite something. But I think the thing is, it's you have to get used to working on a fairly small space unless you get a iPad Pro. But even that's only so big, and you can only look at about maybe 5 or 6 staves at a time. But you can work on a full orchestra score on it. And indeed, if you watch some of these YouTube things, it shows some samples of it, and it's quite impressive. And the playback is very good, good quality, and everything. So, the only tricky thing is that if you get into very exotic notation, particularly in rhythms, I think it might be a little problematic. But certainly for using it, if I were to use it, I'd use it, maybe to sketch on, and then you can export that in XML into Sibelius or into Finale to work on where you can do more sophisticated editing, but you can get the basic stuff in. So it's going to be interesting how it develops. But just wanted to call it to your attention, and you can explore it on your own.
thank you.
Um,
That's
so
cool.
let me get into uh, another thing here. Let's see here. This is what I want. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to share right here at the outset, are some books dealing with the harp. Um, I'm not going to talk too much about the harp, um, but rather try to talk in more general things about notational things and examples of how you can write for harp. But there's a lot of material out there available to help you with things. Um, and One thing I might point out that I've had for many years, um, I don't know if can you see this that I'm holding up? Is it
No.
No.
just your hands? Okay, let me stop sharing here for a second. Okay, can you see it now?
It's your background. Your background is blocking it out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Hold it closer to yourself, maybe.
Yeah. Oh,
No.
okay.
Hold,
Well, anyway, it's a little harp diagram thing that one of my comp teachers designed many, many years ago. That has the harp pedal layout, and it has a sliding piece of plastic that can show you where the harp pedal diagram, where your harp pedals are at any point. And um, I never really made much use of it because early on I just kind of memorized and kept, you know, in my memory where my harp pedals were. But over the years, there's been different gadgets to keep track of where you are with your harp pedals because it's something you do have to pay attention to a little bit. Excuse me. I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later. So let me get back to where to go here. Yeah, back to this. Um, the other things I wanted to call to your attention um, is that just in terms of general notation, I want to point out Elaine Gould's book. Let's see, where I've got it. Where did I put it here? Yeah, it's down here in the bottom under notation. This has really become kind of a replacement for the old Gardner Reed book, which I grew up on as a composer. But it's called Behind Bars, and it has a very extensive chapters on harp notation. So it can be a very nice resource to you. So I wanted to call that to your attention. Now, speaking to harp in particular, a very early one is one by Stanley Chilupka, and it's called Harp Scoring. I don't know if it's still available. It goes back quite a few years, but it's very good for just a small, kind of pocket-sized um, um, book to have. And one of the early books that came out on that. The one that comes after that is the Salzedo book, The Modern Study of the Harp. And that's kind of what I grew up on and learned that, became acquainted with that book very early on. But that's really where all the very special effects that we know about for harp, and some of them I'll demonstrate tonight in some compositions here shortly. But most of them are based on the Salzedo method. But I should warn you that not all harpists buy into Salzedo. In fact, some of them refuse to do some of his stuff, thinking that it harms the harp. But I've never found that to be true at all. But nonetheless, if you're working with a harpist, you might want to ask that question right up front, whether they're comfortable doing Salzedo techniques. Because if you want to really explore the harp, there's a lot of interesting things that you can do besides just glissandos and harmonics. But anyway, if you want to have a resource for how to notate and musical examples, that is a book to look to. Another excellent book is called Writing for Pedal Harp by Ruth Inglefield. And it's really a very well written book. It did come with a little set of music examples on a long playing record insert, and I'm not sure whether they've put this on a CD or if the listening examples are available. You'd have to check. I should have done this. I didn't check with University of California Press to see how they're publishing it now. But there are audio examples that go with this book. But again, it expands upon and adds some new things tied to the Salzedo harp method. And the latest one to come out, just came out in the last couple of years, is the Lucia Bova, the modern harp. And I don't know. It's a very thick book, and it's very extensive. And if you're really into harp, this is something you might want to look into. I think this is only available in a print edition. Before I forget it, the Behind Bars of Elaine Gould is available as a Kindle edition, and it's much less expensive than the bound book. But nonetheless, this is the latest thing dealing with the harp, and a lot of examples, and it's just very exhaustive coverage of the harp.
Does that come with CDs of any kind?
No, it doesn't. But it does come. I mean, all of the music examples are very clearly identified, so that you could, if some are of interest, you can chase them down. So they're very clearly identified. And I think to a great extent you'd find recordings somewhat one way or another of most of the examples used. Okay, let's get on with some actual harp music here. I hope you'll forgive me for maybe what I'll play for you tonight are examples of my own music, but I'm trying to do it over a period of years, from some very early things that I did and others. But it's certainly not exhaustive, and certainly if you want to look for things in the repertoire, you can't go wrong by studying any of the impressionistic composers. Debussy, Ravel in particular are excellent examples to study excellent harp writing. But of course, harp goes clear back into the 19th century, because you can find it in, Berlioz used it, and primarily, and then of course Richard Strauss. There's a lot of excellent examples of good harp writing there, and so you could keep yourself busy for a long time studying that. But if you really want to learn to write for harp, you should do a lot of listening, really try to develop an understanding of what's idiomatic to the harp. And it's not like writing for piano. And that was a mistake I made in my early years, thinking that you had to have these thick textures. And in fact, the things that sound best on harp are things that have more open structure and lighter textures, because the harp resonates so well that it'll fill in with overtones, and give you the total sound. And so although some harp parts do look a lot like piano music, it's not quite the same thing, and I would really caution about that. And probably less is more, if I can put it that way, when you're working with harp. And trying to think if I had another thought there. I guess not. So let's go ahead and look at some examples here. Oh, darn it! What's going on here? Just a second. Okay. Okay. Is this coming up now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. This is a piece that I did very early on, at least the first movement of this, and it was based on some poetry that my mother wrote shortly before she passed on. And the first song, Morning Light, I wrote actually back in 1963 or 2, I guess it was. And I think even to this day, it's still a very successful piece. But it is kind of quasi-Ravel, because that's who I was into at the time. But at the same time, while I was a student at Oberlin, and at the time there was a wonderful harp teacher there, Lucy Lewis, and she was one of these instrumental teachers that just loved to teach you about her instrument. And one day I stopped by her studio and said I wanted to work on a harp piece, and she said, "Oh, delighted to work with you. Come by." And she was just of immense help. I'd sketch some stuff out, and she'd look at it and give me advice. And that really got me writing for harp. But the thing that I learned in that process is that it's really nice if you can work with a harpist, at least at the initial stages, until you get the hang of it. Uh, because you can really save yourself a lot of time and effort if you have work with someone that can give you immediate feedback on it. But uh, this piece is fairly straightforward, and at this time I chose to just write in the pedal changes as they occurred. And indeed, I've tended to find that most harpists will tend to work with the pedal changes written in the way that I have them here. Uh, with the left foot being DBC, and then above that the EFGA, which is the right foot. So there are 3 pitches in the left foot and 4 in the right. And certainly harpists can very adeptly work both feet at the same time and very quickly. If once they become a reasonably good harpist, and they can make pedal changes really quite quickly. So usually you can write very chromatic music fairly easily. But I'll play this for you in a moment. But this will just give you a little bit of an idea of some of the textures. Writing glisses, and quite often if you want to end a gliss, it's good maybe to give the last few notes of it if you want it to want the harpist to control that rather than just glissing down and just letting it ring. But if you want to kind of emphasize the last few notes of the gliss, you can put that at the end of your gliss sign. Some the numbers here are fingerings, but you don't really need to worry about this. This is something that was done for me after the fact, um, after I'd had some performances. Um,
Greg, can I ask a quick question? What is that
yes.
notation at the in measure 10, that 7/8 measure? What is that?
Oh, that indicates to damp the harp uh, between those notes.
Ah,
This sign right here. Um, I'm trying to think if I've got this. I know I've got it in some, yeah, I've only used it that way. But if you want the harp to be damped entirely so that it doesn't ring over, you can use it. If you just use this sign by itself, that would indicate to a harpist that you want everything damped, and so that the strings aren't ringing over. Because some of the lower strings can ring quite a bit of time. But this indicates specifically to damp those strings, that they were these pitches, and so it indicates to damp everything in between, so that
And
you
then
get a,
do you have to have like an ordinaire symbol F when you want it back to
um,
non-dampened, or?
well, you don't need to do this.
Because it'll be different pitches anyway.
Yeah. Um, the thing is that I really wanted to make sure that I had a good quarter rest there. And I remember being
Mm.
coached that if you want that to happen, it's good to indicate that to the harpist, because they might be tempted to just let the things, you know, damp down by themselves, but you'll get ring over. And but you truly want silence there, then you should. It's good to do that. It's just a reminder that that's what you want. Um,
How long does it take for them to dampen the strings? I guess it depends maybe on how much they're
um,
energized,
well,
but
of course, it depends. I mean, if it's something like this, they can do it just very quickly with their hands. Uh, if it's more expansive, they might have to run their hands up the
hmm.
set of strings to do it. But it can be done very quickly.
Real quick, did you find that harpists in general do want you to, as the composer, to put in all the pedal
Um,
changes there, or do they prefer doing some of that on their own, or
well,
is it a mix?
that's a mixed bag, Paul. It really is.
Yeah.
Some get very irritated if you try to do it because they think they're the only ones that know how to do pedals. Um, but of course, they won't hesitate to tell you that you did it wrong or that you had a pedal change that didn't work. But I think most of them kind of fall in the middle, that they appreciate having some pedal indications because it tells them that you have some understanding of writing
Okay.
for the instrument.
Gotcha.
Even if you may not have it quite right, they'll at least know that you had good intentions. And but sometimes they'll correct where the symbol gets placed because harpists they're very idiosyncratic about where they're going to make their pedal changes, and to some extent it's based on the instrument that they're playing and knowing what it does. And so sometimes they want these pedal changes earlier, sometimes very close. Uh, but
But you'd recommend going ahead and doing your best to put them in
I
rather
would
than not at
I
all.
would, because you can always take them out, or if the harpist says that's too
Right.
confusing or it's not necessary, in your edited edition can remove it.
Right, right.
And uh, okay, now I let me check. I better reshare this because I want to make sure that. I've got computer sound. So let me play this for you, and hopefully this will work okay.
Are you going to put the score back up, or we'll just listen
Yeah.
to it without the score?
Can you see the score?
No.
Okay.
Sure.
There is a quiet sadness in the morning light. It engulfs me as I wake each morn. The birds are not yet risen to give forth their song. And the sleepy sun has yet to lift her golden
Yeah, very nice.
Mm.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Needless to say, that song is has some very personal attachments to me. But
Oh.
um, but I hope it gives you an idea of just some of the different things that you can do with harp. And uh, another thing I should comment on, I think originally I wrote this, I rewrote this piece enharmonically, so it was in flats. And of course, the flatter, this will sound strange, the flatter you can keep a harp, the better it will sound, because in its um, uh, flattest settings, that's where the strings are stretched the least. So if you put them in a natural position, they're a half step tenser, then you put them in sharp, they're stretched even more. And it does change the quality of the sound. And so you always want to look for opportunities that you can keep to the, if you want to get a certain amount of resonance out of the harp, you're going to get it when you stay on the flat side. And I can't, my sketches for this are buried somewhere, but I know I rewrote this so it was all in flats, and I just rewrote it enharmonically, but so it came out in a flat key, but it really changed the flavor of things to do it that way. So that's
Right.
just a little something to keep in mind. Yeah, Liz.
Can I ask a question of notation? When it looked like you had maybe the left hand or whatever, in piano music, it would be the left hand playing a B sharp and the right hand playing a C. And you did that a few places where they were the same note, but you notated them B sharp and a C. And
Well, but keep in mind those are two different strings.
ah,
And so you can,
okay.
you're
Mm.
pointing out a very interesting thing you can do with harp. You can write enharmonically. So like a C flat and a B sharp, and you get two strings playing the same pitch.
Mm.
And,
Huh.
and again, that gives you more strength. And that's another thing that you can take advantage of, particularly in orchestral writing where you want to get more sound out of the harp so that there may be opportunities where you can reinforce the sound by playing the same note pitch-wise on two different strings. So that's another interesting thing. And it brings up other interesting possibilities of having that enharmonic capability. And so I don't know if I could point to there are probably some other instances where I've used that in some way, but it's another little trick up your sleeve in writing for the harp that you can use.
There was
Okay.
one little spot that had a arrows, kind of like a gliss going in either direction, and I'm not sure. It sounded sort of like a gliss, or I was wondering. I think it was in the second section. I'm wondering if it was, a different than a. It wasn't notated a gliss, like you had a number of times, but it was, I think, arrows going in contrary
Yeah,
motion between the.
Yeah, yeah, I
Did you
remember
catch
seeing it.
that? I'm not sure what. I was wondering if you could explain the difference between that
yeah.
and a gliss. Or,
Oh, is this what you're thinking of here? Oh, the
I should have marked what the
are you
that
seeing this
measure
okay?
would.
Mm.
No,
Not yet.
Oh, oh, okay. Are you seeing it now?
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, that's the spot. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's to indicate the direction to do that means putting one hand up and the other one down. So you get
Oh.
yap, 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 yap,
Yeah.
yap, yap,
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Where is it?
So
So the left hand
measure
goes up
56.
and this goes down
Oh, I see.
over the
Gotcha.
same strings. So it's like they're right together, but you go yup, 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 like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember. I think there's is it in the last movement of the Bartok Concerto for Orchestra? I'm not sure I'm in the right movement, but he makes use of that effect. And It's something you really can. I suppose you could do it on the piano, but not so easily because of the action of the piano. But on the harp, it's very easy to do that. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions on this before I go ahead?
Greg, I was thinking about the PDLT, which is près de la table, is it not? The PDLT instruction that you had at times, près de la table,
Yes.
near to the table, which means
Yes.
near to that's near to the sounding board, is it not? And it's supposed to
Ye-
be a more muffled kind of sound,
yes.
a less resonant kind of sound.
Yeah.
Um, did you find is I no, I'm not really criticizing anyone. I don't really it didn't seem to me I was hearing a less resonant sound to any great extent. Is it supposed to be only a little bit less resonant? Or is it
Well,
supposed to be
yeah, it will depend on the instrument a little bit, but press de la table, pardon my French, PDLT, um, uh, is meant to kind of muffle the sound and get a sharper kind of sound because it has the effect of muffling the string when you pluck it right next to the to the soundboard, and it just goes like that, as opposed to and then and you get a little ring if you pluck the string up higher. So it's kind of a drier, tighter kind of sound, but it can vary a little bit depending on the particular harp.
Oh, okay. I see. I thought maybe your harpist wasn't really doing it because I
Well,
was
um,
pardon me.
the harpist that I had here was good. I've had better harpists, but I don't want to downplay. This is not an easy piece to play, particularly this second movement. And but
Right. Well, I thought Deborah, I have to go and give in a word. I thought Deborah Wilkie, that was she, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
She was absolutely extraordinary, I thought.
Yeah. No, this is still the best performance I've ever gotten of this piece. Her enunciation and diction is just incredible. Um, and actually, this was recorded in Marylhurst Chapel. uh,
I think I was at that performance, if that was at the SCI conference
yes, it
in
was.
1919. I can't remember the
Yeah,
date,
that's
but
right.
yes, it was, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, no, it's still very special. When she left town, her husband got a job somewhere back east, and she left. And boy, that was a real loss to the community here, because she was one of the best sopranos in town at that time. So, yeah. Okay. Well, let me move ahead because time may get away from us here. Um, I want to go ahead to another piece that I wrote a little bit later, and let me get it up here so it's ready to share. And okay, um, now I trying to remember how I did this. Does it work better if I start the piece and then share the score?
Whatever works.
Okay. Well, let me share this first here for this piece is based on some poetry by a Native American poet, dear friend of mine, Kosna Habi, or Don Jordan, as his anglicized name is. Um, so it's based on this poem of his called "Tomorrow and Yesterday," and um, I'll read it through very quickly because I really tried to capture the flavor of it. Yesterday I heard the wind blowing upon the wind. I saw the sun shining upon the sun and the ocean trying to drown itself with its surf. I saw the moon from the other side of the world reflecting upon itself. I saw stars striking out upon others and dying in their efforts. I saw a bloody hand on the evening sky reaching out for infinity and finding man's emptiness. The wind began to blow upon the wind. Um, this piece I wrote for Carol McLaughlin down at the University of Arizona. She was a faculty colleague at the time I was there, and absolutely a wonderful harpist to work with. She was willing to play and try anything, and so it really opened up Pandora's box here. Um, I don't know as I can explain all of the things here because I don't want to take time just talking about this. But this is a fairly good compendium of the many different things that you can do with harp. The thing that was really wild about the performance of this is that Carol, one day I was at a rehearsal with her, and I suddenly realized that she wasn't looking at the music. It was there, but she wasn't turning pages or anything, and I realized she had memorized this all. And it's really was I thought was quite a tour de force, and it really makes the piece even more impressive because you don't have a music stand there and you can see really what the harpist is doing. But in any event, there are examples in here of harp whistle. Uh, this and a lot of these are salzato techniques, alien rustling, and bis bisbig or bisbigliano, but it's usually called just bisbig. Um, and then doing that while the pedals are changing. Now, they start at this setting and then are gradually moved to this setting. And it creates kind of a strange kind of modulation in the sound. And this is a sound here with a stopped harmonic sound here with that. Let's see here, I'm trying to think. The metallic sound here is achieved by holding the pedals in half position between like a sharp or flat position. And it makes them rattle and makes some wonderful sounds in doing that. And you can see here, I've given a combination of pedal markings and actual note markings. And this is what Carol ultimately recommended when she helped me do a final editing of the piece. And so you can use the two things in conjunction with each other. This little sign here where you have the muffling thing, that means hitting the note and immediately muffling it with the other hand. And as soon as you do it, and it has the feeling of a kind of a stopped quality. And some more PDLT here. And here there's this ostinato idea is kept up, and then this is improvised by the harpist. This is sounds knocking on the soundboard. A bisbigliano gliss, and this starts down further, and the hands cross, but you keep doing the bisbigliano while you cross and gliss at the same time. There's a snare drum effect here, and that's done by scraping or plucking the strings up above the where they're tied off at the top of the harp. And nail buzz, you pluck and then let your fingernail touch the string lightly, and it'll buzz slightly. And this is with this little half moon thing is with the fingernail. You can slap with the hands. Yeah, I think that's about all of it. So why don't I play this, and then if you've got questions afterwards. Now, with this, let's see. No, this wasn't the one I have. Sure, here. Yeah. It's, I've got another one where I have some preliminary instructions, but I don't with this one. So let me now go back here. Let's see if this will just. Are you getting the sound?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No.
Wow, quite a piece.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Greg, did you
Journey.
uh, you got a lot of those techniques from reading those books you mentioned, correct?
Well, to some extent, David, although at the time I wrote this piece, I'd been doing a fair amount. I've got some other chamber pieces with harp. And I guess the thing is that I knew about some of these things, but had never found a way to use them. And when Carol said, write me a piece and you can do anything you want, it really stirred my imagination. So some of these were things that I knew about, but had not really put into practical application. But I knew about them through study and kind of consulting and talking with harpists over the years.
Did you notate this with pen and paper first? And then put
Uh,
it in phenolic
yes,
or
for some years this was in pencil manuscript, very neat pencil manuscript
okay.
on oblong paper. But I to keep the oblong thing, I did. This actually was done in Note Writer. Uh, when I don't know whether any of you know about that program. It was one developed by the gentleman up in British Columbia, and was an early Mac notation program. But it's only a graphic program. It doesn't have any playback capability. But it's ideal for doing a score like this because you don't have to worry about hiding measures or anything like. You just have blank score paper and you put it on. And so it was the ideal thing. This would be a nightmare to notate in finale,
I was wondering, yeah.
needless to say.
Had you ever played physically the harp yourself at all, a little bit?
Uh,
Just to,
only a little bit through consulting with harpists. I mean, a couple of them, had me sit at the harp just so I had an idea of the, the arm's length and, where things lay, so that I had a better idea of visualizing and imagining what it would be like to play something. I've just
As I
had
was,
very good harp friends over the years that I knew in the orchestra or whatever.
that's really impressive. I mean, I've written very little at all, and I'm completely clueless on it. One thing that struck me was it reminded me of the wonderful presentation we had from Matsuki, the koto
Play,
Yeah.
yeah.
player last year. I'm not hope I'm pronouncing her name right, Matsuki Desai. I want. Do you know if there's anything in the repertoire for, for concert harp and koto, like duet? Because I think that would be interesting with, especially with all this extended
That's a good
technique stuff.
question. I'm not aware of any, but it's certainly possible that maybe there is somewhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that would offer some very interesting possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are some techniques that are kind of similar to the koto that you do on harp. So okay, I really had a couple more pieces, but I'll maybe just do one short, two, just some excerpts out of a couple of others here. I'll stop the share here. Let me get those queued up. I want to show you a piece that I did where paper is strung between the strings, and it occurs right at the very opening of the piece. Come on here. And this was a piece that I based on a painting by Gustav Klimt. Um, and just let me get my playback set up here before I. Okay, now let's see here. Okay, this is the painting that I used for this piece. It's called Die Musik. And I wrote this, actually, Meredith Clark down in the Bay Area, harpist that I got acquainted with, premiered and gave some lovely performances of this piece. I'll play just the opening part of it because it just shows you kind of another interesting thing that you can do with harp. And by stringing a thin piece of paper, weaving it through the strings, and the strings buzz against the paper. So I'll just play the first part for you to give you an idea of this. Then the paper is pulled out at this point. to stop there because we're getting long in time, and I wanted to show you at least one more piece in that's not a solo piece. And so let me get that queued up here. And this is a piece that I wrote some years ago for. Let me get it shared here. For soprano, flute, violin, cello, percussion, piano, cellist, and harp. But I'll just play a little bit of the opening of this so that you can get another perspective of harp in an ensemble.
We are we hearing things?
Greg,
Greg, are you playing
Greg,
it?
yeah,
We're
You didn't hear any of that?
we're not hearing any audio.
barely.
Oh, I wish somebody had said something. I'm
Yeah, I was
sorry.
wondering why no.
Thought you were still
Yeah,
working on the file.
no, damn, I'm sorry. Um, well, let me try this again because I've got shared computer sound. Let me just start it again here.
Maybe super faintly we heard something.
yeah.
Okay, let me just try it again here. Sorry.
No worries.
No, we're not getting it. Very faint.
Thought I heard something.
I'm gonna go.
Okay, good night, Dennis.
Good night, Dennis.
Night, Dennis.
Good night, Dennis.
Yeah,
Good
good to see you, Dennis.
Dennis.
Well, gee, you were hearing the other things okay, weren't you?
Yeah,
Yes,
Oh yeah.
yes.
Perfect.
yeah, but nothing here.
Huh.
Something very, very faint, but it's not intelligible.
Well,
Do you
that's
need to share the screen and then share the audio? Is that how it works? I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I don't think that should
'Cause
make a difference.
okay.
well, what it didn't on the last one.
Are you using a
Uh,
different program to play this?
no, I'm all playing it all in iTunes.
Huh.
and I'm hearing it very loud here. Um,
Well, that's weird. You'd think we would.
well, let me stop the share.
Score, just shot, saw the score.
Yeah, well, you were starting to share your screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any chance Zoom is interfering with it? There we go.
Okay. Um,
That worked.
okay. Let's see. I had just one more I wanted to play for you. This was in, okay. Now I guess I've got to, just let me get this opened up. Okay. Um, okay. Are you seeing this okay?
No.
Not
No.
yet. We're not seeing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now we are.
Beijing impressions.
Okay. Okay. I hope I can find this. I just wanted to show you a section of harp writing. It's in one of the movements that's further on. Let's see, I've got to go to page 74. Okay. Now I'll start to play. Well, this is just, it'll occur just a little, I'll have to let it play in, but I'll point it out when we get to it. Whoops. Okay, I think I got through everything to give you a sample of stuff. So, any questions or?
Nice to have the different contexts, you know, the
Yes.
solo piece all the way to orchestral. That's
Yeah.
pretty neat.
Greg, just
Yeah.
a historical kind of question. The chromatic harp, they tried to develop in what, the latter part of the 19th century? Into the
Yes. Uh-huh.
And for whatever reason, it failed. It did not work. Do you know why?
No. Well, now when you say chromatic harp, do you mean without pedals or with?
As far as I can remember, without pedals, a true total chromatic
Yeah.
granted harp. And they couldn't get it. I
Yeah.
don't know what happened. Composers
Yeah.
did write for it. I don't remember who now.
Hmm.
It just didn't work. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like taking the open French horn and stuff and then making that a chromatic instrument.
Yeah.
They
You know, I'm
couldn't
not.
do it. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure about that, David. This very extensive harp book probably might speak to that instance. I have the feeling that it was probably mechanical problems trying to overcome and the incredible amount of tension of those strings.
Uh,
May I
I,
chime in on that a little?
yeah.
Yeah.
May I chime in on that a little? There are you may be aware of the Welsh triple harp as a phenomenon, the folk harps of Wales, which are actually they have 3 rows of strings, and they have I guess you would say that they have the white notes on the piano on the right side and on the left side, and then in the middle they have the black notes of the piano. So you can,
Mm.
with your left hand and with your right hand, reach the white notes of the piano, and then you can reach in and play the black notes as well. So you do have actually strings tuned to all of the chromatic notes, and there's a long, actually centuries old tradition of blind Welsh folk harpists, well, seeing ones too, but especially blind ones is something that the Welsh are accustomed to thinking of, playing these harps with gut strings. Why it's never caught on outside of Wales, I'm not sure. And actually, interestingly enough, if you look at Welsh folk music, it tends to be very diatonic and not to make much use of
Yeah,
any
right.
kind of harmonies. So, but all those notes are there for the full chromatic if you want them. And there's actually a harpist in Salem by the name of Bethany Evans, who's of 90% Welsh ancestry, who gigs primarily with the the pedal harp, which the Welsh call the English harp. But she's something of an expert on Welsh triple harps as well, and can tell you more about them if you're interested. But why it's never caught on with the quote classical non-folksy world, I'm not sure. And may I ask one question? Also, Greg, I didn't catch the title. I didn't write it down for your solo piece for Carol McLaughlin, but I was very impressed by that piece. Could you run
Oh,
that by me once more?
yes, it's Tomorrow on Yesterday.
Thank you.
All right, Greg, thank you very much.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Yeah,
Most welcome.
impressive.
Thank you, Greg.
I
Amazing.
appreciate you listening.
Yeah.
No, I've really have enjoyed you know, the more you write for the instrument, the easier it gets. And I don't know, I just can't imagine even writing an orchestral or wind ensemble piece without the harp. uh, there just adds so much color and possibilities. Uh, and to you know, and also bridge places where you want to have tutti sounds and maybe have more of a chamber music sound out of a large ensemble. And the harp can kind of really help you bridge that and kind of fill in, give color when you want to have more of a chamber sound. This recording I just played for you in the section where the harp is playing there. I don't know, on the playback I've got here, that's really an MP3 that I think I made out of a cassette tape, and you can hear it a little more prominently because that the eighth notes that the harp is playing through there really adds kind of an interesting undercolor to the overall orchestra texture. And I'm not sure it comes through quite as clearly, but certainly it carries in a live situation because I conducted this particular performance. It was done with the Blue Lake music faculty in Michigan, and they did a wonderful job for me. And I know I was worried about the harp being heard, but certainly when you're hearing it live, you can hear it very clearly as part of the texture. And but you do have to be careful because a harp can be covered up, so you have to be skillful in if you want it heard that you handle your orchestration accordingly, because you can easily cover it up. Now, of course, many orchestras will have two harps, and if you look at some of the late 19th century literature, particularly Richard Strauss, of course, many times you had two harps, and that was usually because they wanted to facilitate very chromatic writing. So if you have two harps, between the two of them, you can get all the notes that you want. But the thing is that as harpists have become more skilled, that's not quite so much a problem anymore, because certainly several of the pieces I've written are very chromatic, and a really good harpist can navigate that just fine, and they can change those pedals very quickly, and figure out a way to play something. And if it's not quite right, they can say, well, you know, I can do this here if you just change this one little thing, you know. And you sometimes find that you can drop a note here and there and get just what you want, and have a very nice chromatic structure. So I don't know. I've had a lot of fun doing it. So. Okay, well, listen, thank
Thanks
you
a
for the
bundle.
opportunity, and appreciate it. And unless there are other questions,
Thanks so much, Greg. That was
yeah.
I really enjoyed all those pieces. I'm sorry that we didn't hear some of those all the way through.
Yeah, I was looking, Greg. It's a stunning instance of the Mahler Sixth Symphony where he uses two harps,
Hmm.
and Carlos Comar, the Oregon Symphony, he did the sixth twice. And the first time he did it, he, I guess for economic reasons, only used one harp.
One harp.
And then the second time I heard it, he used both harps, and it made an enormous
Difference. Yeah.
enormous difference.
Yeah.
Debussy with his two harps, and
Yeah.
Debussy has an interesting piece for flute, harp, and viola. Unusual kind of piece, but he uses it. Ravel. I mean, yeah, it is there.
Hmm. Well, I think, yeah, there are kind of maybe two reasons for the doubling the harp. To some extent, in Strauss scores, I think it's just to give more harp sound, and not necessarily for the chromatic availability. Although you can find passages here and there where, you know, it's accomplished because there are two harps, but
Yeah.
certainly in a huge orchestra, two harps are certainly better than one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sign off, and
Okay.
you all. So take care.
Yeah.
Everybody.
All right. Good
Good
night,
to see
everyone.
you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.